Well, good morning. It's about 4:35 a.m. on Monday, and I know you can't see me. There we go. Well, today I'm going to drive from Austin to Dallas, and I'm going to get the fuel economy figures out of the 2019 Infiniti QX50 with the 4-cylinder variable compression turbo engine. But before I start my trip, you'll see I have a range of 94 miles on the tank. So I need to put some fuel in here so I can go all the way to Dallas. And we're gonna do some stuff at the gas station to do some sort of like pre-flight checks. So let me get my seatbelt on and head over to the gas station near Interstate 35, and we'll be on our way. Alright, I'm going to put some fuel in here. I don't need a full tank, but I'm going to put enough fuel in to gauge the fuel efficiency from the trip computer. And the reason for that is because it's technically Monday morning, and Monday morning is when they pick this car up, so I don't need to put any fuel in it for them. And I'm going to grab a coffee, because I obviously need one. I'll see you in a second. Okay, I have my coffee right here, and I'm going to be on the way. Before I do that, though, we're going to go here. Oh yeah, let's explain this for a second. Why do I have a gasoline engine vehicle on diesel drives? Well, this happens to be the variable compression engine that Infiniti has rolled out. It took them 20 years to develop, and it's now available in the QX50 only and exclusively. So basically, in the press release, they said that this provides fuel efficiency and torque of a diesel-like engine, but without the emissions. And I figured, well, I've done a review of it on New Car Spin, and now I'm going to do it on diesel drives with a road trip. So we're going to go to information here, and we're going to go to Eco Report. So this is my score, 33 out of 100. If you look at my history, yeah, not so good. And that's because I drive these cars pretty much in the worst way possible to get the worst case scenario. And that's sort of real world, right? Nothing's ever perfect. So I'm trying to duplicate terrible situations so that you can see what these vehicles perform at in their worst. So we're gonna go to fuel economy here. And well, if we go to history, my latest is not that great. So we're going to reset it here. Yep. And it says my range is 201 miles. Right there. Which isn't exactly enough to get me to my house in Dallas from here in Austin, but we're going to try. Now, if we go to the center menu, we see that fuel economy has been reset here as well. And we have other things here, such as trip. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that, and to do that I'm just going to hold that down. There we go. And then we have our speed. We don't have average speed, so we don't have everything here that we need for average speed and time it took, but we do have things here like variable compression ratio. This eco shows that we're at 14 to 1, and power is 8 to 1. So basically, without getting too technical, this is the type of configuration the engine is in, and then this is the turbo spool in itself. And then of course our tire temperatures are supposed to be at 33 front and rear, and they will appear while we're driving. We'll show you that later. This here are all the safety systems that are incorporated into this button here, which I'm going to activate. Now we have all of the safety systems active. And that is actually something you have to do every time you get in the vehicle. It's very strange. But when that's not on, we still have lane departure warning, but in a different way. It just vibrates the wheel. When you have this on and cruise on, it will only steer you. And when it steers you, you can have cruise on and steering, or cruise on and no steering, and you would press this button here to disable steering while you're driving under cruise. So there's a lot of tech in this vehicle, and I have said already on New Car Spin that this is what you'd have in place of an Audi Q5 or a BMW X3. In my opinion, though, at $57,000, I'd rather have a Q50 Red Sport, but if you need an SUV, this is an alternative to the Audis. And if you love this interior as much as everyone else who's seen this loves it, this is a great alternative to the Germans and maybe even to the Lexus. Now, this does have features that the Lexus and the BMW and the Audis can't have, which is a remote closing tailgate from afar. We're talking yards, almost 100 yards of range. And it has remote start. The difference, though, between the remote start on the Lexus, which the Audi Q5 doesn't even have. So remote start on the Lexus means you can remote start it, and the moment you open the door, the engine shuts off. In the Infiniti, you open the door, the engine stays on. So those are just some of the features here, and I know I've reset our fuel economy, and right now idling doesn't help very much, so we're going to hit the road. And I don't even have the navigation set up to our address yet, but here's the nav controls, so we can zoom in, we can zoom out, okay? And then we have different types of maps. If I hit map, we can see different maps available to us. We can choose split maps, full map, turn list, so, and an eco report. We'll put that on for a second. So as I'm driving along, we got our map, we've got our time spent during cruise and deceleration, and what that does is it gets us a score. I'm not interested in the score. What I'm really interested in is what sort of MPGs this thing returns, and you'll notice there was a screen for that somewhere here. The downside is there's no, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna have our average on that bar, and then that average right there, I hope, is real time. This car doesn't really focus on fuel economy as much as other Japanese products do, so that's the interesting part. This is the only engine available, and I know that with diesel engines, they were sometimes sold at a premium to gas engines. In this case, there's no comparison to what the premium is for having an engine like this, and this is a new engine and first of its kind and the only in the world right now. And I guess the point here is this or a Q5, and if you're going to get it for the interior, that's great, but if you don't really care about the interior, then why would you get this over a Q5? Maybe because of range. Obviously, we would like to have diesel style torque and diesel style range and efficiency without the emissions, thanks to other manufacturers that have screwed that up for us. So this is the first alternative to everything that's no longer available. This is brand new. It's a 2019 Infiniti QX50, and we're gonna hit the road right now. So we're gonna just pop this into drive, and we have an electronic parking brake. We also have auto hold, which will hold us at red lights if we feel like it. And then we have drive mode, and in drive mode you basically have sport, standard, eco, and then there's personal. Very similar to all the other types of features that are available out there. With obviously there's no adjustable suspension in this car even at this price, but we're going to keep it in standard. I do not recommend eco because it has an eco pedal, meaning that the gas pedal here has haptic feedback, and if it's in eco mode it will give a lot of resistance towards acceleration, especially off the line. So that's not what I want here on the freeway. This is a terrible mode. It's just as bad as the mode in the 4-cylinder BMW 5 Series. It cripples the car, and you're not going to get the same performance you expect. It doesn't do anything other than resist acceleration. It's not really a different mode that does something differently electronically other than the gas pedal. It doesn't really unlock or unload some magic sauce to make it perform the same with less fuel. There's no hybrid powertrain here. It's just pure gasoline. So what we're going to do is just give this a shot. And you can see I also have auto high beams on, so we'll disable that because we don't need them on this freeway. And I have full LED lighting in here, and I have full LED lights on the outside. And fully loaded, this thing's $57,000. It's not bad. But in order to get this kind of interior, you have to spend $8,000 in options to spend $2,000 to upgrade this interior. We've got a blue suede, we have a brown leather dash, the smoothest surfaces I've ever felt here. It's very organic and orgasmic. So smooth. If you're into textures, this car will deliver. And of course we have a large storage bin in here, USB slot, and we have more USB right down in there, and an outlet. Very minimal storage for your phone if you want your phone out. In my case, actually, I do, because I want to put on the Bluetooth music. So we'll just do that real quick. And there, I got Pandora going, straight Bluetooth to the stereo, and in order to see, you just go audio. There you go. CSS Jaeger Yoga. All right, well, I'm gonna rock out through downtown and let's go on our way. We'll see what this thing can do. Got just about over a half tank. We're not interested in the fuel gauge though. We're interested in the fuel economy, and then we're interested in the eco report, as well as this fuel economy number. So once we set off, this will start. And again, it's exactly 5 a.m. on this car's clock. So let's go forward. Dun, 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 dun. To Dallas. Now, I didn't talk about the braking in this vehicle in my other review on New Car Spin. In this review, I'll tell you the braking is almost it doesn't modulate very well. I wouldn't call it terrible. It's not good. It's almost not good. How about that? Because it feels like it takes a lot of travel to pedal travel to get it to brake really hard and bite well. It's almost like, if you are an Infiniti fanboy, you know that this has a CVT, and this is probably in your mind, oh, that's not an Infiniti. But at the same time, you're probably really proud of the fact that it has one of the world's first variable compression ratio motors. And this is how well it does. It just gets on the freeway. So with the CVT, it feels like there are gear changes. It feels sort of natural. The only part where it doesn't feel natural is on the braking side. And as far as the suspension, it has decent suspension travel. It has a lot of damping, and there's body roll. It's not tight. It's more or less luxurious. And these zero gravity seats are the same way, although I'll explain to that. I'll explain the problems with those seats in my other video. So go ahead and use the video link in the description below if you want to see that after this video plays. Okay, so now you're seeing the fuel economy, and I'm going to drive this normally. I'm not going to really go for a fantastic, fully hypermiling drive because, well, the speed limit here is 70, and it's 5 a.m., and people are in a rush. This is the beginning of rush hour as we get to downtown Austin, because I'm actually south of Austin right now, and then we're going to head north up to Dallas. So just sit back and enjoy the ride. We're out of downtown now, heading towards Round Rock, and I have the cruise control set the whole time here, so the car is doing the driving, which is great because I'm trying to eat my traditional Austin style breakfast taco while I'm driving, and I can actually take my hands off the wheel for about 10 seconds before it starts yelling at me, but it's doing the driving right now. It's actually steering the vehicle. There we go. It doesn't like that. So if you keep going past the warning, it beeps, it beeps, it beeps, it beeps, it beep, 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 and then it will jam on the brakes to get your attention. So you can't fully veg out in the driver's seat eating your breakfast tacos on the way to work. But so far with the car driving and the idling we did at the gas station, we're now at 26.3 mpgs, which isn't diesel-like at all. So what I'm going to do is move this down into eco mode, and now we're going to let the car do the driving in eco mode. And we'll see if we can get that up to 35. I'd like to see if we can get 35 mpgs here. Obviously 42 would be diesel-like, but I highly doubt we can actually do it. Now, the important thing here to note is this engine not only has direct injection, but it also has port fuel injection. So it has a lot of things on it that are almost diesel-like in the way that there's so much equipment on this engine to get it to move and be as efficient as it can be. But we're going to keep driving, and we got autopilot. Well, what you would call autopilot. Nissan, Infiniti, they call it their thing legally for their terms. But we're going to let the car do this cruise control radar / steering while we get all the way out of Austin and onto some more open road. Stay tuned. I got the light on here so you can see me a little bit better. One of the worst parts of these trips that I do is that I don't really have passengers with me, so there's no one to hold this camera, and I gotta do all the work here. So I shoot, I edit, this whole thing's produced, and it's a lot of work. So I appreciate your patronage through YouTube, giving me a like, thumbs up kind of thing, even subscribing or even leaving a comment down below. That's a Texas truck right there. An F-250 with a trailer of nothing flying down the freeway. Well, we're 26 minutes into the trip here, as you can see by the clock, 5:26, and the Eco Drive for some reason still says 33 out of 100. I don't believe it, mainly because if you go back to the menu, we go to information, fuel economy, we're now averaging 27.7. So we are improving rather rapidly, and we are in eco mode here with the drive button in eco. You can see the little eco signature down there by the trip. Actually, the odometer. And one thing I wanted to mention here is that I-35 goes all the way through the state. It's actually considered like a drug runner corridor from Mexico all the way up to something like Chicago. So this is a heavily policed, heavily trafficked interstate these days, and that's fine. They do connect San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas off this freeway. Houston's kind of off on its own off of 45, which is a separate freeway. And the distance between Austin and Houston and the time, to take to drive between Austin and Houston, Houston and Dallas and Austin, sort of like the Devil's Triangle there. To get between each of those cities, it's the same 3.5 hour, 270 mile drive. So it's quite odd if you have to go to Houston and Austin in the same day from Dallas. You are going to spend a night in a hotel, because that is all day just to get around. However, historically, in the state of Texas, the cattle that was raised and I don't know what you want to say, but the cattle that was bred here and was then transferred up towards Chicago for the stockyards and things, and they would ship beef and things from the slaughterhouses over to New York City, things like that. There were wagon trails or cowboy trails, or whatever you want to call them. Interstate 35 is very, very similar en route to Chisholm Trail. And I haven't really done anything about Texas history or cowboy trails or anything like that, but there are several cowboy trails that go from South Texas, where all the cattle used to graze, and then they would drive that cattle up through to like Kansas City and things like that. So if you're interested in those stories, let me know, because I might go beyond just fuel economy drives in Texas and do more of a Texas history thing. There is the Texas History Museum here in the capital of Austin, and I think that you can learn a lot through YouTube, and I'd like to just produce more educational stuff along the way. and I think I could line up some awesome little vehicles to sort of align with that. Let me just move over one more lane. Everyone's kind of coming up on my ass here because they're minions and they got to get to some kind of dead-end job that they don't realize is dead-end. Anyway, they're in a hurry for some reason. They feel like they got to tailgate me. There's another trail called the Goodnight Loving Trail, and that's a really interesting trail because that's Oliver Loving and Charles Goodnight. And Charles Goodnight, Chuck, invented the Chuck wagon. And I don't think people really heard that story other than the series Lonesome Dove, because Lonesome Dove is actually based on Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving, and they were business partners, and they've both been through hell and back, and to the point where Oliver Loving was ambushed apparently by Native American Indians, and he basically was he had this arrow in him, and he was, you know, back in those days you just amputate, and he was like, no, I'm not going to amputate, I'm going to suffer, and he ended up dying like 22 days later. So hardcore people. And in the end, like during that time, the guy was those guys were driving cattle, so the business partner dies, and in the end they get the cattle up to, I don't know where it was like Cheyenne or something, and Charles Goodnight still took that half of the money, Oliver Loving's money, and gave it to Oliver Loving's family. I mean, the guy could have just taken it for himself and said, I finished the cattle drive, I earned it to keep it myself. No, he just delivered on his word. So those are some cool stories, and that happened on the west side of Texas, not here off I-35. It was more like the trail that you would take if you were on I-20. But I think I want a truck for that one, because there is a trail that you can I don't know if you can drive on it, but if you have horses, if you're equestrian, you could definitely ride that, which is pretty cool. But right now we're in this Infiniti, and we are just going up north on I-35 towards Dallas. We're now averaging 28.6 mpgs, and we are 32 minutes in. Let me get through the menu here. How far have we gone? 36 miles in 40 minutes. And we have cruise right there set to 70, and it's doing its thing. By the way, I don't know why you would do this, but you see that green steering wheel? It means that it's steering on its own in the lane here. And you can disable that with the steering wheel button over there on this very BMW-like bank of buttons and headlight control switch. I don't know why you would disable it, but at the same time, you have that opportunity. And of course, we're on radar cruise, so we're slowing down. And I'm going to move over now. We're going to pass that construction truck there. This thing does accelerate nicely on standard mode. Because you are at the top of the rev range when you floor it, you get all the torque, all the boost. So you have to imagine, like, if you're familiar with diesel vehicles, their torque is all down low at idle, and you almost have to short shift them. Like if you have a manual off the line, you don't even redline it. You go to like 3,000 RPM, bam, next gear change, and next one, and the game. That's the game. You're basically changing gears as quickly as possible at the lowest revs possible. So that's how diesels are. Gas engines, you redline them, you squeeze everything out of them all the way to the end. And this is no exception, even though it's got this variable compression and it's sort of like designed to have that diesel-like torque. It does, but it's at the opposite side. So it has a personality. And when I drove this for the first time, it felt very elastic, very, very weird, very almost like an electric car, but with very, very slow off-the-line acceleration, because it doesn't grip down and go like a typical Infiniti, or in this price range like an Infiniti Red Sport 400, the Q50 or the Q60. This thing just sort of has a wave, so just after you get off the line, then it builds up and it goes. And then once you're in that rev range, and it's not changing gears because it's a CVT, but once it changes gears with that fake stepping that it does, it's constantly, 4,000 to 6,000 RPM when it's accelerating, and you feel this wave of torque. So that wave, when you get up there, that's when it feels diesel-like with the surge and the thrust. So this car is very different. It's unusual. And if you test drive one of these at the dealership, this car has taken me 6 days to get used to and find its personality and realize that this does have a diesel-like personality like other vehicles that I've driven before that I'm not going to mention. But it feels that same way, just with a little bit more requirement for revs. So if you're not used to revving it out, this thing is happy to rev it out and then deliver the torque. It's kind of cool. And if you've never driven a diesel, that's fine. Just know that the feeling of the power that this thing delivers is what diesels do right off the line, just immediate. And this is not a bad thing, but what you're getting here in the variable compression is you get a car that you can just float around traffic in during rush hour or stop and go, and you're not really paying a penalty probably as much as you would in a diesel, because diesels really aren't efficient at idle. They're just sitting there burning fuel, and they're not generating heat either. But because this is gas, it's generating heat. So I guess you could idle and at like a rest stop if you're tired, and somewhere like Virginia in the winter, keep the heated seats and the vented seats running, stuff like that. I know I'm just rattling on here, but literally we have like 2.5 more hours to go. So what else am I gonna do? Actually, I will tell you what else is going on. 29.1 mpgs, so we're getting closer to the 35, and I'd like to hit 35 mpgs before we can even try and hit something like 42. But as you see, we're making progress, and we're only 37 minutes in. So I will connect with you back when we get to Temple, Texas, and then I'll connect when we get to Waco, Texas, and then I'll connect with you when we get to Dallas during Dallas rush hour, and we'll see what happens after we accomplish whatever the max highway value is here. When we get to the rush hour of Dallas, how much that takes away when we're sitting there in stop and go traffic. I'm going to use radar cruise as much as I can on this trip, because when you're doing long trips, the benefit of having radar cruise and the steering and all that stuff isn't so that you can drive while eating a breakfast taco. You obviously don't want to use electronic devices such as cell phones, but you want it to do all the work so that you have a reduced amount of fatigue, so when you get there you're not worn out. So with these zero gravity seats and all of this electronic assist system components to make the drive easier, we'll see how I feel at the very end, and we'll see how well it does with fuel efficiency. And in the end, it's like, why, with this kind of interior and this kind of fuel economy or whatever it's going to deliver, maybe you can tell me in the comments right now why you would buy this or not buy this over a Lexus RX or a Lexus NX or a BMW X3 or maybe even the X2 or maybe the Audi Q3, even though this is more like a Q5 in price. And then when you get to the end of the video, tell me what you think at the end. Are you convinced? Are you not convinced? Did you know it was a good choice all along? Or is the CVT just going to be a deal killer for you? The only deal killer for me right now is this headrest. This is a pre-production vehicle, by the way, and this headrest is like pushing my neck forward, so I'm not comfortable in that respect. And I am 5'10", sometimes 6'1" online, but it's just not sized for me appropriately. And this vehicle being pre-production, the story behind this actual vehicle is that this one is one of 14 that were used at all of the auto shows around the world and in the press events. So this vehicle will likely be crushed when I'm done with it. Kind of sad, but when they're pre-production, I don't know what they do with them other than crush them. This one has 6,200 miles on it. And this one was actually assembled, built, and all that stuff back in October of 2017. So they just started making and selling these cars in March for the US of this year, but this one was made last year for the auto shows. So there have been 50,000, 100,000 people in these cars. The seats feel great. They look great. I got my breakfast tacos on there, but in general, it's kind of cool to be able to drive that very vehicle that was on the floor of the New York International Auto Show, or Detroit, or Los Angeles. Actually, if you want to know how far back my history is with the Q50, the QX50, I did a video where when I went to the LA Auto Show in November of 2017, I was invited by Infiniti to the Hawthorne Airport where they did a reveal of the QX50. And you'll see this very vehicle in that reveal video. And I'll put a link to it in the description below or somewhere here on the screen. That was a fun little video I did during my trip to the LA Auto Show. And this is that car. It's kind of cool. Alright, as you can tell, the road's wide open. We're going to move over a little bit because we got two cars coming up. And I'm going to turn this light off. And we're going to enjoy this drive. 29.1. So it's been fluctuating a little bit from the hills. See ya. 603 and averaging 29.8. I think it's gonna hold at that for a little bit. We are now in Temple, so that's not bad. An hour from South Austin to Temple, almost getting to 30 mpgs in eco mode. And one thing I want to say is I've been in the right lane lately with this radar cruise on and this automatic steering, and I've been noticing that it's doing what the Audis do with the steering, is that it sees the exit, and when the exit lane opens, the car kind of goes towards it and then cancels out. So I don't like that, and I know that people have complained about it in their Audis, where it sees an exit and starts going this way and then comes back in. It's pretty freaking annoying. So I like driving in the middle lane because it doesn't see that stuff. But if you are like reliant on the steering systems, know that in the right lane, this does exactly what the Audis do. And I don't know why cars do this other than through terrible software programming, but it's something that drives me crazy, so I figured I'd mention it. In the meantime, 29.6, so we actually decreased a little bit. This is a huge construction zone, goes on for like 10 miles. Once we get past this, I might crank it up to 80 to see if 80 is really detrimental to the fuel economy. And then when we get to Waco, I may do 70, because it's relatively flat through here. Will 70 or 80 miles an hour make a difference? Where's the sweet spot for the best fuel economy? That's what I want to get you guys. I want you to know right away what this can do. So we're about an hour, a little over an hour into the trip, 29.8 mpgs, and the sun's starting to rise. This traffic's starting to show its ugly head, and we will continue on. I'm just chilling behind this truck in a 2-lane construction zone. Even though the cruise is set to 70, it's got the radar, and we are at a distance set for 2 bars. And I can always adjust it with this button here, so we can increase or decrease that distance. Ooh, that's nice. Anyway, even though the cruise is set to 70, you'll see we're doing like 58, 60-ish. And cars are passing us because it's rush hour now and these minions got to be somewhere. But 30.3 is the average now, And I still think we can hit 35. I'm not sure 42 is even doable. And I'm not pushing this thing, and we're still in eco mode. But when we get past this construction zone, which is any minute now, I'm gonna crank this thing up to 80 and see how much detriment that plays against the average we've established. We'll stick on 80 through to Waco. Waco is a 65 mile an hour limit through that town. But then after that, the speed limit's 75 again, and I may switch it down to 70 to see if we can gain the efficiency back. Meanwhile, the sun's rising. You can see that we have great interior lighting in here under this awesome wood trim. I can't find a way to adjust the brightness of it, and there's no way to adjust the color of it from what I can tell through this screen here. So, and obviously the Audi, you can adjust all that stuff, different colors and things, but not here. Oh, I'll put my foot back on the steering wheel here. Oh.
I got dreams.
On a road trip, especially in a road trip like this, you need a good stereo. And I always recommend a few things should be upgraded in any vehicle you're going to buy, especially when you're going to do road trips. Number one would be you want dimmable mirrors, especially external dimmable mirrors, because in the desert like that, you're going to have these bright lights from afar. It's going to drive you crazy. So dimmable mirrors. And then you definitely want to upgrade the headlights if you can. Upgraded headlights are always worth it. And you definitely want a great stereo. Always take the option. That's the successful key to life, is take the option. So if there's a stereo upgrade, and I've been known to pay up to $5,000 for the Bang & Olufsen and the Audis. Thankfully though, the upgrades don't cost that much in other manufacturers. I don't think I would ever spend that much again, because people go, well, do you have a $5,000 plus stereo at home? No, I don't. So why would you have one in your car? Anyway, the stereo in this one though is the Bose Performance Series, and it's not like totally awesome killer sound, but what it does have that's great is the soundstage. And it has different focal points you can do, but in the end, like and this is a Bose trademark, is like you're not able to really tell where the speakers are. So when you're looking straight ahead and you're listening to something like John Mayer live, whatever, that's pretty good reference material, right? So you want to reference something, go play John Mayer live. And in here, like, I don't hear the pinpoint of the cones, and the sound is just sort of in front like a stage. It's really good at that. But different types of music bring out different nuances of this system, but still you can just get in the car, hit the road, crank the tunes, and have some fun. And I figured I would just say something about the Bose stereo in here while I can. And look at that, 30.8. And of course we're stuck behind the truck doing 60 in a 60, which is a construction zone. But any second we can open it up. I think it's coming up right here, actually, after... No, a few more minutes. Finally, we're out of the construction zone. It's going to open up here, but we have a lot of traffic behind us. So I'm going to let that clear, because there's no point in speeding up with these minions. I'm not going to work like they are, nor am I in a rush to get to work ever. That's a strange phenomenon. What I want to talk about here is, while the sun's rising, ooh, look at that. While the sun is rising, this panoramic sunroof actually has a sunshade, and it's a blackout shade. It's not filtering any light like in the Q5. And the difference between the Q5 and this one, I actually like the Q5 better in this respect, because you have to vent the sunroof, right? You push this up. When you do that though, the shade has to open because it's a blackout shade. In the Audis, the light filter shade could stay closed and you'd still have protection from the sun. Now you may think, well, that's kind of excessive, you know, to talk about, but in the hot Texas sun, it's nice to have a blackout versus a screen. But at the same time, I would like to have the sunroof open for fresh air and the shade closed. So it's kind of like you can't have both worlds. You could actually, if manufacturers were to build 2 shades, one light filter and then one blackout, just like a hotel room. And I think if Infiniti really was listening here, and when you're watching Infiniti and you want to take your interior to the next level, 2 shades, one blackout, one light filter, and that would just put this over the top. I would now start to consider a few more luxurious items in here. Maybe an espresso machine in place of a glove box. I just press a button over here, order up an espresso, and something pops out here, like some kind of built-in nice $1 million kitchen kind of thing. I can keep going on with my wish list, but my wish list is going to sound pretty outrageous because this thing really does fit the bill in all aspects. So there's really nothing else I can ask for. All right, so I moved lanes and I got the cruise control up at 80, and we're gonna just go down towards, or go up to Waco now, and we'll go to the menu for fuel economy in just a second. You can see our distances left. Okay, so we got, this is the benefit really of having this cruise with the steering, is you can take your hands briefly off the wheel and go do something, like get your coffee or fiddle around and put the lid back on or clean up a spill, and then come back and everything's back where it should be. But you gotta touch the steering wheel once in a while. We're gonna go here, we're gonna go menu, we're gonna go info, and we're gonna go fuel economy, 31, and we're gonna go back, boom. So I don't feel fatigued at all. But at 80 in eco mode, we'll see what happens for the next, like, well, this is where we gotta go to, Waco, right? And then Dallas is up there. And if you want to see the whole trip that we did so far, I can't even really pinpoint it. I don't like this nav system because of the way it shows the streets. It doesn't do a very good job. You have to zoom way in, and then at some point, it doesn't even zoom anymore, it just shows more streets. It's just a little awkward, and I'm not gonna say it's outdated or outclassed, it's just, I'm sure it's specifically designed, but I think they could do better with displaying more streets in certain zoom levels. I can't do it here because I'm not in a city, there's nothing around. It's completely boring around here right now. But I want to show you in the city, like, the frustration I have with the streets on the nav. Oh, we're back down to 70 because we're following this truck. All right, I'm gonna get back to the driving here. When I get to Waco, I'll give you an update on the fuel economy at 80. Let me just switch lanes. The truck sped up now. That guy. Anyway, after Waco, we'll see if we can improve on this. It just changed. This ought to be fun. I like a challenge. Getting closer to Waco, 80 miles an hour, and we don't have much crosswind today in this wide, expansive area with hospitals in the middle of nowhere. However, at 80 miles an hour, it does start to feel a little twitchy. I'm not going to say like unstable, but it just feels like everything's magnified. All the little micro movements in the steering wheel get magnified here. And it's an inherent thing with SUVs, and it's why I'd rather have a sedan over an SUV on a long road trip, because you just have a higher center of gravity, you feel a little bit more like swashbuckling. And at 80, and this is my valid argument here, because speed limits in Texas go up to 85, so people will be passing you even at 90. And my theory is, like, I have to check this car out and see what it's like in the limits of Texas. And in this case, at 80, it's starting to feel a little like maybe someone's gonna get car sick if they look down, or they're just gonna fall asleep. They're just, I don't know. To me, it's like, well, hold on, we're in a 65-mile-an-hour zone now. It just seems like at 80, you're starting to magnify things, and it's still handling. But this, again, like with the CVT and the dynamic new engine this is, if you're an Infiniti, hardcore Infiniti fanboy, let me know what you think about this vehicle. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it a glorified model of something else from a parent company? Or do you think that this is kind of typical and acceptable? In my opinion, for a CUV/SUV vehicle, which doesn't even have a third row, it sort of is expected, which it's not a complaint. I just want to make sure that you guys know that I can feel a difference at 80. And even in Waco here, which we're in now, at 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, these minions got to get somewhere. 30.8 mpgs, and Waco. Tell Chip and Joanne I say hi. Actually, I've never been to the restaurant. I wonder if that restaurant's any good for breakfast. If you have been to the Chip and Joanna Gaines restaurant in Waco, tell me what you think. I might take a trip to it in a separate video in another vehicle. I can't do it today because it's 6:35 in the morning, 6:36 in the morning, and well, when I use press cars, I use them to the exact last minute. They picked this car up at my house at 9 a.m. so I have to be home at 9 a.m. I can't dilly-dally, and I got a battery that's running low here on my GoPro, so I got a third of the battery left. I don't know what that means, but we'll see if we can make this last. So this is the rest of Waco. Waco, I always see that place too. That's interesting. Anyone been there yet? Looks like a college dive for, you know, Baylor. Around the country, we obviously have a lot of straight roads, and there's almost no instance to need this lane keeping device, right? So in this case, it's warning me because I need to touch the steering wheel. So what if I don't like that? Well, I just push this button here, and it disables that steering assist, and now I can just drive in a straight line and just enjoy the drive. However, even though I've hit that button and disabled the steering assist, it still has lane keeping assist, and that's the default option. And that's even when this is not active, it still works. What happens is, you can see, it alerts me when I go over that line, and it actually brakes the vehicle to try and pull me over, and it actually slows the vehicle down at the same time. And we'll do this again. There's one vehicle behind me, but we can try this one more time. So you drive along, and you notice the lane keep assist is off, but the lane warning is on. There you go, it vibrates, slow down. Let's see if I can get the speedometer on here. You can see the difference too. 70. Okay, we'll get it over a little bit. Vibrating. 69. You see? And that's downhill here. So it's definitely doing something on another level. So it has 2 lane keeping assist systems, and I thought I'd just share that with you. Turn it back on here, and now it will do the steering, which it didn't do. Oh, you know why? I need to look at my screen. Okay, so now it has it. I do think this is one of the better camera systems because it does a good job at picking up these lines. On some of the roads, the lines are, you know, washed out, faded from the sun, things like that. But here in the QX50, it's picking up the lines quite well. There hasn't really been an instance where it can't find them. And here's another straight stretch of road, and it's warning me. And it's gonna beep, 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 beep. Well, I'm actually not brave enough to show you what happens. Let's try it again. It warns me, it starts beeping, it beeps faster, and then it's gonna slam on the brakes. Oh, I hit the brakes. That's not fun. It's not a good experience.
And my reflection troubles me, so here I go. I'm not calling for a second chance. I'm screaming at the top of my voice. Give me reason, but don't give me choice, 'cause I'll just make the same mistake. I'm not calling for a second chance. I'm screaming at the top of my voice. Give me reason, but don't give me choice, 'cause I'll just make the same mistake again.
I got the sunroof open, trying to get some fresh air in here and just kind of keep me stimulated, but it's really humid out and 72 degrees. Ugh, not nice. But it is 7:03 in the morning, so we are 2 hours into the trip, and I've got the cruise set at 70 in a 75-mile-an-hour zone. See, speed limit 75. The weird thing is we're still only doing 30.8 mpgs. So I don't think you can even crack 32 in this in a perfect world. And I was trying to do worst case scenario, varying the speeds and things like that, but there's really no point in doing 5 below the speed limit. So I'm gonna now just start driving, passing cars and stuff like that, to see if maybe driving faster and not using cruise is gonna make this improve. I do know that in diesel vehicles, cruise, that's funny. A tiny little thing on the back. I do know that in diesel vehicles, cruise control is actually a detriment to the fuel economy because it's like a constant, and you're not really like riding the throttle in a way where you'd feather in or out on inclines and stuff like that. So we're gonna see what this is like with cruise off. And now it's just me, and I'm gonna take it out of eco mode. So I'm gonna take this switch and go up, and we're gonna go to standard, and I'm gonna try and keep up here with the traffic and go from there. We'll see if we can beat 30.8. I'll check in later. Well, I've been having a little bit of fun so far. I have it in personal mode, which means the vehicle is in like the most highly tuned state, sport plus active, everything going on, and that's setting us here. And if I go into Infiniti drive mode selector, you will see that engine transmission's in sport, steering is in sport, dynamic plus, active trace control on, active engine brake on, and this is the drive mode selector in personal mode. And I'll just give you an idea of what the passing power is like, because I said the torque is up high in this rev range with this variable compression. I have to move over. Whenever there's a stopped or emergency vehicle or just anything in that lane, you have to either slow down or move over. Yeah, I don't slow down. It's inefficient. You want to be safe though. I think that's like the antithesis of karma. Okay, so we're getting onto 35 East. Okay, there's a BMW for our fixed point of reference. I was gonna call it a fixation, but we don't want to fixate on that thing. It's ugly. Still got his right blinker on though. And move over or what? Probably not. Okay, so watch my speedometer. I'm gonna put my foot down. Tack goes way up. Thing just goes. So yeah, variable compression does provide diesel-like torque in a different way. And it's not delivering the fuel economy I was expecting or wanting, but it's delivering performance on the freeway. So diesels are like long-range cruisers made for distance, and this, as long as you're below 80 miles an hour so that you can feel more comfortable at speed. Once you get into like the mode of passing people and just, you know, weaving, not necessarily weaving, but threading your way through traffic and keeping a constant pace, you can with this engine. Just put your foot down, ran, just goes. And you kind of hear like this groany sound from the engine. There's no exhaust sound. All the noise is coming up front. And I'll show you again what happens. We're now at 30.1. I'm giving up on fuel economy, by the way. 148.8 miles, 2 hours and 16 minutes. Let's go to our... There we go. So at the top, power, that's 8 to 1, and then eco is 14 to 1. And then if I put my foot down, it's just immediate. Now the difference between going between 14 to 1 and 8 to 1 takes about a full second. So in between, that compression ratio is actually variable. So it's not like one or the other, it's anything in between on the way. So you can put your foot in and then take your foot out, put your foot in, take your foot out. It's always adjusting. So as far as long-term longevity, Infiniti thought ahead, and they did plasma coating on the cylinder walls, the same type of coating they did on the Nissan GTR. Now my battery's low. I don't know how I'm going to get past this moment, but I'm going to turn this camera off and come back when I get to Dallas proper, traffic proper, and we'll see how it is in traffic. In the meantime, open road, traffic. Now I have to slow down. 70 to 75, that should be slow enough. Now we gotta speed up. Wow. Wave of torque. My GoPro battery died, so now I'm using my cell phone. Basically, I'm in stop and go traffic now, but I'm not using radar cruise anymore, but I still have this blue button active, which means that in stop and go traffic, I can just coast, and then when I come up to cars that are stop and go, as they slow down, I slow down. And if they stop, I stop, and I don't even need to use the pedals. So my foot's not on the pedals, and the car pretty much paces the vehicle in front on its own, and it will come to a complete stop for about 3 seconds before I have to use the pedals again to keep it at a stop. So when it stops, if it's a 20-second stop, after 3 seconds it will resume going forward even though the vehicle's in front. So you gotta be cautious about that. But getting close to the city, obviously. Got about 12 more miles to go before I get to the house, and I will give you an update right now. We'll go to home, information, fuel economy, 29.4. So the best it can do is 29.4. We'll see what this kind of traffic can do. I have a lot of it ahead of me, and yeah, that's going to be exciting. Or not. But once I get there, we will tally up the final numbers and see if this is what you expect, or do you expect something better. Well, I stand corrected because I've got the radar cruise on. It's only set to 20 miles an hour because I was just like, let it do the driving here. And I feel a little relaxed right now. However, when these vehicles come to a stop, this car comes to a stop and it actually holds the stop. So when the radar is on and we come to a stop, it's fine. If you don't set the radar cruise and you just leave this blue button on, then it will still slow down to a stop, but then it won't hold the stop. Cruise control, when it says cruise, it's going to hold the stop. And I'm hoping that they stop here so I can show you, in fact, that I just discovered that. Here we go. So he's going to stop, maybe. This traffic is ridiculous. It's a Monday morning. By the way, we do have heads up. I don't know if you can see it. Oh yeah, that's weird. I can't see it through my polarized sunglasses, but I can see it through the cell phone screen through my polarized glasses. So this is, look at this pace. This is just ridiculous. 4 miles an hour. This is the beauty of these cruise control systems. You don't really need it on the highway, on the open road like we just experienced. But when you get into a city, this is a very versatile thing to have, because now you can rely on it and be like, I'm not doing this kind of work. Let the car do it. Okay, here we go. We're going to come to a stop. He's stopped. It's stopping all by itself. And now I have to actually hit resume for it to go back up. So it didn't let go. It just stayed. So you need to always be sure to hit resume, or I think you could even hit the gas pedal to allow it to go again. But here it is again. It's coming to a stop. My foot's not on the pedals. They go. Right here it says resume. I hit this button. Here we go. So it's not like, oh, it's going to automatically go up. It will if you only stopped for a brief amount of time. Like, we're not fully stopped. Now we are. And then it gets to a point where you'll see when that display says press resume, it means it's not going to automatically do it itself. But if we get to a point where there is no message, then it would automatically do it itself. So most new vehicles that have this system are operating all in the same way, which is good, because I do like consistency across the board. It means you don't have to read the manual. You just kind of have that, like, oh, that's how they all operate. That's how it should be. God, look at this traffic. It's nuts. I mean, you go 3.5 hours from one town to the next. Obviously, it's Monday morning and rush hour, but this cruise control is why you spend this kind of money. You know, like if the always take the option. That's the key. That's how you become successful. Just because these days, if any manufacturer, any level of vehicle offers a system like this, and you find yourself traveling a lot and you go from town to town or something, this is why it's worth that extra money. And those systems are like $2,000. I've seen $3,000, but just for that amount of money, it's really a small amount of money when you think about it. It's like 1 or 2 years worth of insurance premiums. But at the same time, if it prevents you from having an accident, whether you're looking for an address or shuffling paperwork or maybe changing a station or anything, and it saves you from one accident, it's paid for itself. Now, granted, sometimes it's a little frustrating. Sometimes I get frustrated by these systems on the open highway. But now here, perfect. This is perfect. I mean, I can have a cappuccino. I can do whatever I want here. I can take a call. And I can just sort of, I'm actually in a nice state of mind. I'm in a good mood, and this is not a bad way to conduct business on the way to work, for instance, if I was a minion. But this is not bad. I like it. Pleasant. But we're not there yet. But if I look at the menu, we go to information, we go to drive report, 28.9. So it is dropping. And something cool is, let's go back. You want to see my Eco Drive report? Look at my score. 96 out of 100. So that'll give you an idea of how this entire journey has been since we took off. I am pretty much getting an A+. Pretty much good enough. See, now here we are, completely stopped. For a while now. And my Eco Drive is fantastic scores. Traffic, radar, life's good. Okay, it turns out that was just all from an accident. Someone rear-ended someone and pushed someone into a cop car and pushed that car into someone else. It looked like a pretty bad mess. But here we are, downtown Dallas. It's 8:26, so I left at 5 a.m., so 3.5 hours. And if we look, it's quite open right now, which is good.
Follow I-35 north.
28.6 mpgs after all of that. And then if we look at let's go back for a second, Eco Drive report, 96 out of 100, great. And then of course we have downtown, and I'm gonna head home. So when I get through all this and get to my house, we will do one last review of everything, and
In about 1 mile, keep to the right onto I-45.
What I'll do is I'll just give you a brief recap of this trip. I'm sure you've seen everything you need to see here for me to come to my conclusion, but definitely leave a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out all my other videos. I got playlists, I got a bunch of stuff, other road trip videos, and of course my other channel, New Car Spin, where I have other reviews, including a review of this Infiniti in a different style where we don't talk about MPGs. But I figured diesel drives, this is a variable compression turbo with a CVT all-wheel drive, sort of like, I consider it an Audi Q5 killer in a certain way, and you know what, it is a good alternative.
On the current route.
But when we get there, we will get there. Downtown. This tunnel is scary and fun at the same time. It just looks cool on camera. And it sounds cool if you have a V8 and you open it up like I did on my Challenger video.
Keep to the left onto US 75 North. Then keep to the left onto US 75 North.
Nice. Okay, almost there. My low fuel level light just came on. I knew I was going to have just enough fuel to do this. Anyway, this car is very peppy and very responsive, but only at the high end of the rev range. And with the way the brakes are, I think that the brakes need better modulation. They need to be stronger. They need more feedback. Because when you are redlining this thing,
on your right.
okay, when you're redlining this thing and driving really hardcore, you really can't get the confidence that you need from this on the braking side. So you have to be able to accelerate and then brake, because braking is actually even a little bit more important than acceleration, especially in stop and go traffic, or you just got to get in and out of this stuff. I mean, every city's different. Like Atlanta is crazy for traffic, and so is DC, and you know, every city has their own style of driving. But in this particular instance, the style of driving here with these, you know, like, you don't want to have close calls, but I think in Charlotte they drive just like right off each other's bumper. This may not be a good car in that kind of situation because of the brakes. And then you have to gain momentum, which means you're going to be flowing into traffic like some of these idiots do. So anyway, I'm pretty much home, and that's my recap of this vehicle. The fuel economy hasn't really changed, and you know, it's got a personality with the way it's driven, and 28.2 pretty much average. I would say that whole diesel effect, the only diesel aspect is the torque, the wave of torque, that surge, the thrust, everything that comes along with that. And then in addition to that, you're getting this fantastic interior, a lovely wood trim, just the great ambiance. And then comfortable zero gravity seats with my breakfast on it. But that's the Infiniti QX50. Would I suggest you buy one? If you're tired of Audis and tired of BMWs and you don't like the remote start features of the Lexus, and I think if it's all in the same ballpark, like 55 grand, then yeah, I think if you want an SUV CUV like this, who would blame you? That's Diesel Drives. I'm Brian. Please watch my other review on the same car on New Car Spin. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.